All right, guys, if you are here on LinkedIn, we are live now for our Tuesday chat here, talking about demystifying the job search. And I have a special guest. You can see him here. I have Jason Alexander. He is the Chief Revenue Officer, guys, and co-founder of Bank W Staffing Companies. And he's a serial entrepreneur, guys, okay? And he is an executive career coach. He's a public speaker. He is a bunch of things. But I brought him on today because he's a rock star and he has helped a lot of you guys in your job search. And he's got a lot to say about this stuff and help you guys make a clear path basically to getting that next job and getting it fast and being you. Okay. Welcome, Jason.
Well, thank you for having me. And being a former high jumper, this is you've set a high bar to clear. So I'm looking forward to the rest of this conversation.
Please show us how you can jump high. I want to see this. I do.
I'm gonna.
Space there? Okay, no.
I'm gonna skip the embarrassment for the time being. It's been a couple of. It's been a little bit since I've partaken.
Gotcha. So today we've been talking just a little bit before this live here. We're talking about demystifying the job search. Like, what are some big problems that you see when people come to you, I need a job in your staffing company?
Yeah, it's interesting because we're in the coaching that I do with a lot of my clients. I don't think for anyone who's been in the career world, the job market, whatever it might be, for any period of time, I think we've hit a point where we're seeing some unprecedented stuff taking place with technology enablement, with applicant tracking systems, with AI, and just the amount of job applications people are seeing for openings out there. We're kind of in uncharted waters for the time being. So to answer your question, I think one of the number one concerns I hear coming from job seekers these days is there's a fear in general of self-promotion, of self-sales. And one of the things I try to instill in all of my clients is that, first and foremost, we have to adopt and accept the idea that a job search is a sales job. And in a sales job, if you're going to be successful, you need to act accordingly, which involves a lot of networking, a lot of outreach, a lot of self-promotion, a lot of marketing, and so on and so forth. And for those people who aren't hardwired to do that kind of work, it can be a really daunting kind of a thing.
Oh, it can. Everyone tells me when they come to me, they're like, I don't want to sell myself, especially the introverts. They're like, please, can I do this another way? And it becomes a problem because what are you doing in the workplace once you have the job? You're negotiating for benefits. You're negotiating for time off. You're selling yourself. You're selling the project. You're selling whatever it is. So how do we get around that, Jason? Like, how do we take the focus onto ourselves now and sell ourselves?
Well, I think it starts. My own personal thesis on anybody trying to conduct a sales role is that the number one thing missing between a successful salesperson and somebody who might not be so successful is a true belief in the value of the product or service being offered. Ooh. If you have something of value for your client and it's going to pay off, it's going to provide a positive ROI, it's a whole lot easier to promote because there's not a lot of ambiguity in terms of what's in it for them. And I think that's sometimes one of the things missing is what's in it for the client, so to speak. What kind of value do all of your attributes, all of your skills, all of your soft skills and experiences and education, what can that quantify to for your clientele? One of the things that I spend usually the first couple of conversations with a client working on is some of the self-branding and some of the value realization when it comes to what they do well, when it comes to what they have to offer. So oftentimes people don't think of their backgrounds from a measurable outcomes perspective. Did me doing my job well make my company more money? Did it save my company more money? Did it mitigate risk or do a variety of things that might be measurable in terms of outcome?
Yeah, and those measures don't have to necessarily be exact numbers either. I have so many clients who are like, well, I don't bring like money necessarily to the table. So, but what do you bring to the table? Because you're asking someone to hire you, right? They're paying for a product and service, being you. What are they going to get out of it, right? What
Mhm.
are you bringing in HR? Are you going to improve engagements? How are you going to prove that? How do you showcase that to a company, right?
Mhm.
You have to figure that out. And a lot of times that involves like you and me and some of these other coaches out there of pulling it out of people. And they're like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry, but when I'm hiring someone, if they're like, I don't know, I'm not sure, I don't want them really on my team, because it's just going to
Yeah.
be like pulling teeth, and you're going to be wasting my time. You're going to be wasting my money. You're going to be wasting my resources to be able to help make my company money. And in turn, you're making your money. I'm paying you a salary. I'm paying you, or a contract, or whatever it is. What are you going to do for me? Right? We're all in it for what are we doing it for? What are you doing for me? And you have to think about that on the company end. This is what I teach people is like, when you're the company, put yourself in the company's shoes. Who are you hiring? I was just talking to a lady yesterday, and she is a very senior HR at a large company. And she's like, I have to figure that out. I don't, what do I exactly bring? And I'm like, oh my goodness, you're making 300 some $1,000s a year, and you're not knowing what you're bringing to the company. You have to focus in on that, because someone's going to be paying at least that to bring you in as a premium product.
Mhm. When people are pitching their background, I always say that to take a step back from it, one of the things that I try to help demystify a little bit is that the first steps in outreach don't have to, when we talk about sales,
Mhm.
and job searching being a sales process, I think a lot of people immediately go to that bad experience they had on the used car lot and say, I don't want to be like that man or woman that
Yeah.
really bothered me that day with regard to their sales tactics. And it's not like that at all. This is a very much networking focused selling approach.
Mhm.
And one of the things I've always said about networking is I believe that one of the keys to being a really powerful networker and a very successful networker is the discipline to take others' agendas more seriously than your own, even when you're in a position where you need something from them.
And I
So
like
if
that
you're
you
not,
said that. I want to stop you there, because I really like that you said that you're putting others' agendas ahead of yours. Think about that in any relationship. You look at it as a parent, you look at it as a spouse, you look at it as a friend. If a friend comes to you and they're needing something, do you start ignoring their needs and putting yours first? Or are you seeking to understand what they're looking for and what they're struggling with, and how to help them solve their problem? Are you,
Mhm.
when you're parenting we were talking about our children beforehand here, and some children and different stages of their life are very challenging, and they can be draining, right? But are you going to be like, oh my gosh, child, you are so draining. I can't stand you anymore. You're frustrating, whatever it is. And they're just coming to you to seek hope and guidance. Whose needs are you putting first, yours or theirs? And it's the same thing, like you said, in the job search. The company needs a problem solved, and you have got to position yourself as the solution to that problem. You're not going to be able to solve every problem, and you're not the solution to all of it. But what are you good at? Right? A sales guy, or whoever it is, when they're selling a product or they're selling a service, they're not going to come out and start just verbally vomiting every feature that product or service has to offer. And I think a lot of times that's what we do. We want to put it all on our resume. We want to put it all on our LinkedIn profile. In our interview, we just want to blah. And what that does is, it's like you're not focusing on, this is what the company needs right now, and where do I fit in? And that becomes it becomes a very serious issue. And then we wonder why the job market is flooded with so many applicants, and then companies creating these very vague and weird sometimes job descriptions and whatnot. And we're trying to fit in. But then when we get into be able to talk to someone, we're verbally vomiting. We're not associating the two. We're not researching the company, especially public ones, because that's easy to find what they really need. They're not hiring for an org chart position. Oh my gosh, we're missing this one. We got a big X here. Let's just throw something out there and see what we get. No, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting about going back to the networking piece, because it rolls right into what you were just talking about. So there are, in order to successfully sell to anyone, no one buys from anybody unless it's just an absolutely perfect product or service. Most of the time, most people don't buy from people they don't like. They buy from the people they do like.
Yep.
In order for them to like you, so to speak, you need to become one of three or all of the following three things in their eyes. You need to become interesting and or relevant and or valuable. And you need to become one of those things in the shortest possible time frame you can. The only way to do that is to try to do your research companies, research individuals' backgrounds on LinkedIn, try to find common ground, try to find common interests, and even more importantly, try to find something that you can offer to do for or deliver to that person.
So give an example of that, because a lot of people struggle with it. They're like, I reached out to this person and we went to the same school, we're alumni, and I don't know what I have to offer to this person. They're at the company I want to work for. What do I have to offer them? I'm unemployed. They're employed and have a job I want.
Yeah, well, first of all, that's a really interesting point you brought, because the idea that I don't have anything to offer because I'm unemployed really and it's a very common thing that people will think. It's really common. And think about what that statement actually means. When you were employed, you had all the same skills you currently have. You had all the same expertise you currently have, the same market knowledge you currently have. You were just on a payroll at that point in time, but you're not now. Was the fact that you were on a payroll before the only thing you had to offer to somebody else? Or was it something having to do with your background, education, skills, expertise, et cetera, et cetera? So I'd like to dispel the belief that I don't have anything to offer because I'm unemployed, because you have tremendous amounts of things to offer. Expertise in their marketplace, war stories to relate over, problems that you've probably commonly solved with the individual that you're trying to reach out to. Or oftentimes what I'll do is, if I'm trying to get on the radar of somebody that I find to be important, influential, someone I want to get to know for whatever reason, I may do a little bit of digging and find something to send them that would be of interest to them. A blog article that I've read recently, or a website, or some insight on the market that they're currently operating in, some piece of information and intelligence that's going to make them think that A, I do my homework before I reach out, and B, I actually have something of value to offer right out of the gates, as opposed to, hi, I'm Jason. I'm a staffing expert, or I'm a public speaking expert, and here's my resume, and go ahead and hire me. That's a big ticket ask right out of the gates, without knowing that the individual that you're reaching out to, or establishing the credibility necessary to sell them anything in the first place.
Well, that's like going on, I relate a lot of job searching stuff to dating too. That's like going on the first date and you're the guy and you're bringing the wedding ring and you're like, whoa, like we didn't even talk about anything. I just met you. And I know a lot of staffing people feel that way. They're like, these people I have never had in my network before, or they've been sitting there not contacting me all this time. And then all of a sudden I see the open to work banner go up, and then they're reaching out to me. And I'm like, well, I have my and this is what I tell people too. They have their normal job, guys, as a recruiter, as a hiring manager, as anyone else in a job. They have their normal job. You're reaching out to them and asking them, like you said, a big ask. Hey, can you keep your ears open? Hey, can you look over my resume? Hey, does your company have anything available right now? who can I talk to? That's a big ask on top of their daily stuff. So like you said, what do you have to offer them? Do some research on what a typical hiring manager or recruiter or talent acquisition person is doing every single day, and how can you add value to what they're already doing, helping them in some manner. You can even go back to old times before money was an identity, before they had dollars. My kids and I have been talking about this back in like ancient Greece. They were bartering. They were saying, what do I have? If I'm, growing corn, okay, and the guy at the market is growing potatoes, and I know I need potatoes to make something. Okay, how am I going to offer him corn so I can get my potatoes? What skills do I have? Can I go help him on his farm? Yeah, whatever it is, right? How can I work together? Maybe we can work side by side, and together we can make pupusas together, whatever, right? That's totally different culture and whatnot, but still, like, what do you bring to the table, and how can you benefit them first? We live in a society of me first, me, 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 me. Just look at any toddler, baby, me, right? And I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it. As adults, it doesn't really change.
In a lot of cases, you're right.
It doesn't. We have to position ourselves to serve others. And it's so hard because we've got just our humanness fighting against us, saying, no, it's supposed to be all about me. When really, if we serve others first, they're going to be wowed and be like, you know what? Jason reached out to me and he provided me something of value. It might not be everything that I need or like or want, but my goodness, he took the time to do it. I'm going to think of him the next time X. And that's what we want. We want to keep ourselves on the top of their mind, because not of what we can do, but how we've served.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the things that I've been for decades now doing when I go to a networking event or I'm meeting with people, networking with people online. I always ask some simple questions like, what's challenging you right now? What are some of your biggest challenges at your desk, in your marketplace, whatever it might be? And I make it a point to write that down. And so I don't forget. If they've given me their business card, I'm going to jot it down on the back of their card before I forget. And then I'm going to do significant follow-up on that. I'm going to let the person know in the days and weeks to follow that event that I'm taking the relationship with them seriously. Mm-hmm. I think way too often, job searching and networking can be very much you can draw lots of agricultural parallels. Mm-hmm. We stick a seed in the ground, and the next day we get really angry that it hasn't turned into a 6-foot sunflower yet.
My kids are standing at our seeding rack every morning, looking at them like, "Is it going to come yet? Is it going to come yet?" Right? No, it takes a lot of time.
It takes watering. It takes time. It takes multiple interactions. It takes a while to establish significant credibility with an individual, which is why I tell the people that I work with for a long time, clients that I've worked with, is you're not just working on your job search today, you're actually fortifying your job searching efforts for the rest of your career. Mm-hmm. By beginning these networking efforts and continuing these networking efforts even after the job is even after you land that job. I mean, all too often, I'll see people will, they'll do some networking. They'll kind of do some of the right things as they refer to for 3 or 4 months. They'll get a job, and then they'll eliminate all of those activities. Yep. And a few years later, if they find themselves searching again, they have to start over from scratch with a really cold and relatively empty network. Now, that doesn't stand for everybody. There's plenty of exceptions to this rule. If you're watching this session and there probably are some extremely well-networked individuals watching. Mm-hmm. We're not necessarily talking to you with that, but for the most part, the average individual who's not out networking on a regular basis is not usually dealing with a vibrant, robust, prolific network that they've mm-hmm. cultivated over the course of time. And that does take time, and there's no shortcuts to doing it.
No, there isn't. And that it continues on into the workplace too. I've noticed when I was in corporate and working, there was one company I was at, and just pointing this one out in particular, but I walked in as a plant manager, And everyone's like, you're too young, you know nothing about this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. My number one thing was not to do the job. My number one thing was to connect with each and every person. Did it take hours of my day going down, walking the shop floor, walking the office? How is your family? Hey, what are you struggling with? What's challenging you? Just like you said, like what's challenging you here? What are you frustrated with? What did the last one do that's you didn't like or that you did like, whatever it is? It took a lot of time. And I had investors and I had CEOs pissed off. But you know what? Doing that for a few months gained trust, credibility. Those people stood behind me and backed me in almost everything that I did moving forward. And then I didn't have to micromanage because they trusted that when I made a decision that I was making the right decision with the best interest of them, not for me, for them and the company matched together. Sometimes it was just them, sometimes it was just the company, but they understood. And then it was this big network that now to this day, and this was back 20 years ago, that I can still go to them and they will support 100% because of those relationships that you keep going to and you keep checking in with them. It doesn't have to be anything big. It's, hey, you know what? You've been at Honeywell for the last 10 years. Oh my goodness, what has kept you at Honeywell for so long? We worked together when you first started there. What has kept you there so long? How many of you guys love when someone picks up the phone or they send you a message and they're like, you know what? I was just thinking of you today. Oh my goodness, you were? I totally needed that. I had someone I reached out to a few weeks ago and I noticed that we shared some connections and she was another female, had been in operations. And I was like, you know what? First of all, I love your profile picture. You are a beautiful woman. I said, we don't know each other, but we have some shared connections. And I just want you to know, like, I wasn't selling her on anything. I was just like, I just want you to know that it is difficult being a woman in operations. It's typically a heavy male dominated industry. And I applaud you for being at the company that you've been at doing that for these last 5 years. And you know what? She responded back. She goes, you know what? I really needed that today. I actually was in tears just a couple hours ago. And you know what? I really needed to hear that. And those are the things that you need to be connecting with, not always selling yourself or not always selling your product or service or whatever it is, but care about the people first and how you can serve. And I asked her, I was like, what do you need? Right. And she's like, I'm freaking burnt out. I'm like, you know what? I have a resource that I've used. Can I share it with you? And it wasn't my personal resource. It was someone else's. And I said, here, this has helped me. I hope this helps you. Left it. A week and a half later, she called me. She's like, you know what? I actually think I'm going to leave companies and I need to have some conversations with you. Okay, fine. Let's do it.
I think that's important that you get that people start off. There's an exercise I wanted to talk about, if I could, because I think it's because to kind of go back to one of the first things we talked about, because we've talked about knowing your value, being able to articulate your value, the importance of networking, and all of these things are intertwined 100%. One of the very first exercises I like to go through with my clients is to start with this. Well, what are we talking about? What do we have? What do we have to sell? What's in our inventory right now? And more often than not, the average seeker, when I say, what do you do well? What kind of return on investment opportunities would you offer to a future employer? Things like that. It's a little bit of a deer in the headlights. It's like, well, I'm really good at organizational skills and managing people and various things in whatever their discipline might be, but they're not necessarily thinking in terms of value.
Yeah, that return on investment.
Absolutely. And one of the things I love to do is I'm a big AI fan, used for the right reasons, of course. And whether you're using ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot or Gemini or whatever your favorite platform might be, I love to create a prompt. First of all, go in, start a new chat, add your resume, And then you can actually ask it in general or targeted to a specific company or industry.
Mhm.
What ROI and value do I bring to a medical device company? Or what ROI and value do I bring to Tesla, specifically a company, or whatever the organization is that you're trying to target? And you'll be really surprised at the level of detail that the system, whatever system you're using, will extract from your resume and then articulate it in ROI and value proposition marketing terms. I would say probably 95% of the people I go through this exercise with will look at the output and say, huh, that's really interesting. I never thought of presenting myself that way. And after a few different iterations of that document that's created, you can come up with a really, really strong personal understanding of the value that you have to offer a specific organization or a company in a specific industry.
And I think it's great that you do that, Jason, because, and I do that in a roundabout way. I don't use the AI as much as you do, and it's right, wrong, indifferent, whatever. But I do the same thing. And it's like, what value do you bring? And a lot of us, when we were growing up, we weren't taught that. It was, you just go do what you got to do to get a job. And then you build skills off of that, which is going to get you the next job. And we all have things that we are good at and we like to do. Those are like, that's the best thing that you want to have. That's what you want to really promote. Then you have good things you're good at, but you don't really like to do. Okay, you can give or take those. And then there's things that you are good at, but you don't, or you good at, you like to do, good. You get the point. You have to focus on the things that you're bringing value to your return there. And it's not going to be dollars all the time. It's going to be like, just like I'd said in that example of me talking to the people. By me talking to the people, it brought people together for a cause at the company of whatever we were addressing. And it's so important because you're right. So many people don't know their own value. Once they lose a job, they've been laid off, they've been riffed, they've been fired, whatever it is, their identity was in that job. And they're not saying that their identity is in the value that they bring, the things that they're good at, the experiences they've had, the culture they came from, the skills that they've built over time, their hobbies even. Your hobbies, guys, have a huge impact on what you do at work. Believe it or not, I have art and music hobbies. If I didn't have those to balance out some of my very rigid stuff, I would not be a very good person to work with because of that. It brings some flow and some creativity to some of the things that I do. I hated, I think we talked about this last week, Jason, when we were texting back and forth. I used to, my middle son hates writing, hates it, absolutely hates it. Okay. I used to hate reading and writing. Now I love it. And it has brought so much value to the companies I've worked for, to my business, because I've learned those skills and been able to really impress upon people certain things from that skill set, And I didn't put my identity in that I could not do it. I did at first, like my middle son, that was my identity. I made it a part of who I was and who I am. I know when I had taken a sabbatical from corporate, I was like, the first week, I'm like, yeah, this is fun. I don't have to work. And I'm sure a lot of you, when you like lose a job, it's kind of like the same thing in terms of like, yes, okay, you're frustrated because you lost a job. Okay, you're upset with the finance and stuff like that. But then you're like, wait, who am I? Because you're all into that company. And you're not realizing the value, and not just to a company, but your value, guys, your identity also is out in the world, at your church and your community, in your kids' school stuff, all those things. You don't just add value to a place, like Jason said earlier, because you're getting paid to do so. You have to figure out where your value is across the board. What return are you giving across the board? Look at those other things outside of work. And when you start to see your value in your marriage, when you start to see your value in being a parent, when you start to see your value in the community with your neighbors, things like that, then you're like, oh my goodness, this is what I can do. This is who I am. It's not just about work. Work is a part of our lives. Sorry, I went off on a little tangent there, Jason.
I invented tangents. I totally get it. Yeah.
Y'all should hear some of our conversations. But, going back to like what you said with the value and the identity, and, we were talking about a little bit before a call, like what do you do well, guys? What do you do well? Don't focus on all the things you can't do well. What do you do well?
And let me just to take that a step further, because it's such an important question of what do you do well. Eventually, someone's going to ask you that question in a networking conversation, in a job interview, whatever the case is. Practicing the answering that question is so important, and I can't tell you how many times individuals will play that answering that question out live for the first time in a job interview.
Mm-hmm.
It's so critical, I think, to ask yourself, go through the exercise before you begin, of what do I do well, but not necessarily the individual tactical things that you do at your desk, but what kind of outcomes are you specifically driving? Are you specifically contributing to as a result of your job well done? What happened at the company? Did we retain, if you're in customer support, it's very easy to say, well, I'm just here answering phone calls at my little desk and doing all the things that I do, but you're contributing to a happier clientele, a more loyal clientele. If you're talking about a clientele that pays subscription pricing for your product or service, well, they could go elsewhere instead of continuing to pay and drive that annual recurring revenue. So you are, in fact, helping to drive that annual recurring revenue by successfully pleasing the client, solving their problems, et cetera, et cetera. Now, are you doing it single-handedly? No, but there's something to be said for your awareness of that actually happening.
And I think it's really important to note that too, because you have to know what you're doing well in order to service a company in whatever shape or form. And oh my goodness, I just lost my train of thought. I love when that happens.
I can pinch hit for a second if you like.
Okay. I love when that happens. But if we don't know what our return is, guys, how are you going to be able to pitch yourself? You're buying a product off of Amazon, and you know that product is going to do X. You're going to buy it because it's doing X. It's giving you what you need. If Amazon was to basically put a question mark mystery box on there and it says, here, buy this for $100. I think we talked about something similar to this. Buy it for $100, and you're like, well, I don't know what it's going to do for me. There's no description, or if it is, it's very bland. It's like, here, you're getting a box and it's got a question mark in it. It might do X, Y, Z for you. It might give you whatever it is. You were talking about this, I think, on Saturday. It's like you had a coffee cup, right? And you're like, here, buy this coffee cup for $100. And someone's like, no, that's ridiculous. I can get this for like $12 somewhere, right? Maybe a good 120 something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you knew the value, like you said, inside of it, and that's what we're talking about, guys, your identity, your value inside of you. People aren't going to look at you. Like, I'm not going to look at Jason and be like, he does X, he does Y, he does Z, he's been doing this and this and this. No, he has to, it's the inside in here that comes out, right? But I'm using Jason's analogy. I'm stealing it from you with your permission. But if you have $1,000 bill in here, are you going to buy that coffee cup for $100, right? I would. I mean, that's a good return. I'm getting $900, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the reasons I came up with that parallel, this whole, buying the coffee cup for $100 with $1,000 cash in it is all about, it's all about pitching. It's all about pitching value. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons I like that analogy is when people will ask me what's the job market like? And I'll say, well, the job market is, it's interesting right now. I'm going to say that it's challenging for sure. Mm-hmm. But the real job market, I look at there's three kinds of jobs. There's the advertised job, mm-hmm. the job that we see posted on LinkedIn that already has, 2,900 applicants before you get to it. And we all love applying to those jobs.
Oh, yeah.
Then you get to the approved headcount positions that aren't advertised, but they're being recruited for by whatever means. But then you get to the real big job market, the one that absolutely dwarfs the rest, and that is going to be the job market that is represented by organizations' willingness to create positions for the right people in the right place at the right time.
Yep. And I love that market because that is the market I got every job in.
Absolutely.
Job. I never had a role that I applied to and was given a title, and the title was already there. It was, you showcase your value. People thought I was crazy. But you know what? You have to solve the problem. You have to be the solution. Half the time they know, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you've seen something different in the market all these years, Jason, but the companies know they have a problem. They don't necessarily have the time, the resources, or the money to promote it, market for it, advertise for it, all that type of stuff. They just kind of deal with it. But when someone comes to you and is like, I've been watching your company for a while struggle with this, I can help with that. Here's what you'll get because I'm helping you with that. Oh my goodness, it's amazing. People hated too when they worked for me that they always came to my office with a problem. Who's been a manager, and will come in your office like a revolving door, and it's problem after problem after problem. Oh my goodness, some days it sucked, right? And so I got frustrated to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm not here to solve your problems. You already know at least one answer to that problem. So I would tell them, guess what? You can't come to my office with a problem until you have at least 3 solutions. Because I didn't know there was a problem half the time. You did. And you've already been working through in your head what the problem, that solution is. We can brainstorm together if that's what you want and you need my approval, and we can come up with a solution together. But don't come in and expect me to just give you a solution because you have a problem. And that's what companies are looking for. They're looking for people who already know what's going on. For example, there's a couple of medical companies out there that are having some pretty serious issues and some lawsuits and stuff like that. I'm not going to say their names. You look up, I've used ChatGPT for this. You can even Google it too. This company struggling with regulatory compliance, financial, cybersecurity, whatever it is. You look that up, you can pull it up and you'll see what their problems are. Very plain and simple. Now, how can you solve that problem for them, or at least be a part of the solution? I think maybe too, a lot of people are sitting there like, wow, that problem is too big. I don't even know where I can start with that. And that's, I mean, true, but what company revolves around just one person working at the company and solving all the problems? Every person has a part. You're a puzzle piece in a big puzzle that is going to create something beautiful for people. But you got to figure out where you're going to fit in. And it's so important, right?
I'm sorry. Yeah, please.
No, go ahead.
Too much caffeine. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's fine. We both have that type of personality. No, but it's true. You have to be able to. I love to hate job titles and descriptions. I don't know about you. Does it set some kind of broadness to what is needed? Yes. But if we're focusing so much on a job title, which is why I don't even create resumes with the job titles, then we're losing what the actual solution is. What are the skill sets that you need? What things have you done and can continue to do because you have those skill sets and the experience? I don't care if you're senior executive, VP of whatever, all the things before and after. I don't care. I am a problem solver for manufacturing companies. Boom. I am a whatever it is. I focus on manufacturing supply chain and I solve their problems. You know, you don't have to go so crazy with all the titles. What solution are you solving? Or what problem are you solving? What is the solution?
Well,
Sorry.
one of the things that you just brought up, I've actually enjoyed, like, from multiple conversations that we've had, we've got a very similar approach, and kind of a gritty grassroots approach to this, solving this problem, this general job searching problem, and how do I sell myself, and how do I get myself in the door, and how do I approach a stranger and become compelling, and all these different things. I think it's important that people will, when I bring up, you have to propose a solution to a problem, oftentimes I'll get some opposition, and people will say, well, how do I know what their problems are if I don't work there? And
let's go back to networking.
well, we go back to networking, we ask good questions, and we can also afford to be a little bit presumptuous. We can afford to take a few risks and suggest a specific service, a specific solution to a specific problem, knowing that every single company we reach out to isn't going to be experiencing that acutely right this minute. But for the exact same reasons why the most successful waiters and waitresses are those who suggestively sell from the menu. And if you've ever eaten out, I know when people will, when a waiter or waitress will suggestively sell me something, it significantly increases my the probability that I'm going to buy that.
Oh, I worked in that industry for many years.
Same here.
I was one of the top ones because of those type of things. Yeah.
Yeah. And you might intuitively say, the same way you might say, well, they have my resume. Well, they also have the menu in front of them too. But if you can suggest something that you think they might like, don't be afraid to suggest the coconut shrimp to somebody who tells you later on they have a shellfish allergy. It's okay. Because most of the people are going to tell you they would like to try that. That sounds really, really good. So it's really critical when reaching out to organizations that you're seen as a solution to a problem. I've always said there's really one reason that anyone ever got hired anywhere, and that was to solve problems. You know, even if you're an entry-level salesperson, we don't have enough revenue. That's a problem. We're going to hire you to bring in more leads so we can close more deals, so we can get more revenue and alleviate that concern, that issue.
Absolutely. I mean, I worked at FDA companies where we had a bunch of recalls, and then we had managers in compliance and regulatory where we had to say, you kind of caused this, or you let this slide, and we had to hire for someone else to step in that role. We couldn't promote that, oh my goodness, we had this issue. No, we needed a problem solved, yes, but we needed someone who was actually going to solve the problem and not let something like that slip again. If I see if someone walks in my door and I'm at lunch and walking through the receptionist hallway there, and they're like, hey, you know what? I know that your company has been struggling with audits, and you're not 100% all of them. You always have an issue. You're spending a lot of money on them and whatnot, and you haven't been really top of the market these days. I actually been really good at doing that over the years. Can we go to lunch, or can we sit down and talk? Like, what a great way. And I think, and this was the point I wanted to make earlier, where I was like, oh, I had a brain belch basically. So many people, and I know this is the first thing everyone wants to do when they've gotten laid off or fired or whatever it is, or they're frustrated with their workplace, is I'm just going to start applying everywhere. Anywhere that has this title, anyone that has, similar qualifications. And then and I'm sorry, I'm going to say it because this is who I am and this is what I'm seeing, and it needs to stop. I don't want to see anywhere on LinkedIn, I have applied to this many hundred of jobs for this many months, and I'm not seeing much more than a couple interviews, and I'm getting ghosted and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's happening. But here's the thing. And this is what Jason and I are trying to point out here is you're not focusing. Wasting your time on the basic, easy apply, quickly parse your resume, all that type of stuff. Okay. Instead of figuring out the value that you bring and the problems that you solve and presenting that to those organizations, it's going around the system. And if they ask you to submit an application, okay, fine, whatever. But are you going to give up at that? Or are you going to say, no, guys, I am going to solve this problem for you. This is the return you're going to get because you're hiring me, right?
There's a.
So go ahead.
I'm sorry. I thought you were done. I'm interrupted you a second time. This is not cool.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to ask at the risk of doing a had to be there story live on LinkedIn here. If you've ever seen the movie Almost Famous, which a lot of people have, it's a wonderful movie about a young journalist following a band around. The band becomes very successful. The record company sends in a manager to take over managing the band that already has a manager, and they ask him the question, why would we pay you to do something we can do ourselves? And the reason I bring up the story is if you've seen the movie, it'll add a little bit more. If you haven't, you can still get value out of what I'm saying here. I always say, don't be afraid to be the adult in the room when you're having conversations with individuals, when you're asking questions about things that they might be going through. Don't be afraid to ask questions that you know they likely don't have the answer to. Establishing you as the expert on the subject matter. So it's like if you're an information technology professional who's run a migration from a physical server environment to a cloud environment, or if you're a financial professional who's taking a company public, there are so many opportunities to fail, to lose money, to lose ground, to lose market share, whatever the case might be. And when you know a company is in a certain phase, in a certain size, at a certain inflection point, whatever the case might be, asking questions that lead your audience down the road of realizing and discovering your expertise is such a critical thing to be doing. And I find that most of my clients are a little bit afraid to do that because they don't want to feel like they're cornering their audience, and they want to let the audience lead the conversation. And I believe that any good sales role, any successful, highly successful salesperson tends to adopt the role of a trusted advisor as opposed to a customer service agent. Customer service agent's going to say yes to everything that they can, try to make you happy at all times, try to tell you what you want to hear. Trusted advisors sometimes will push back with a little bit of tough love, and isn't afraid to ask you questions that you're not necessarily, you don't necessarily know the answers to. And
I mean, that's for example, and here, sorry, I interrupted you, but here's an example. It's like, I have people, and you do too, are like, no to your services. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But is what you're doing now working? And if you're not going to use someone to help you, what are you going to do? And that pushback too. You can, and guys, here's the thing, in these interviews, when you're job searching and you're having these interviews, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. You have the right to ask these questions. Yes, do it tactfully, but like Jason's saying, like, have that pushback, because then they're seeing that, oh my goodness, they do know their stuff. And they're like, and I always tell people, I'm like, okay, fine. I mean, we can try this. Like, let's try your way, or let's try my way first. But you know what? If my way you think doesn't work, then we can go back to what you were doing that wasn't working.
Yeah.
Or in an interview, if you have the guts to, I've said this before in an interview, okay, that's fine. But if you don't hire me, who are you going to hire? Who else is in your bucket ready to hire, ready to solve the problems for you and put their all in? What's the worst they're going to do? Not hire you? Okay, fine. Someone else will find you. What's the best they're going to do? They're going to think about it. They'll be like, man, you know, him or her is going to be like, they really mean it. And we need someone in this position to do that. We need someone to push. Our company is stuck. And this is why we have so much turnover. This is why we're losing revenue and stuff like that, because we don't have a salesperson who can really push and say our product is the best on the market. It may not actually be, but it's pretty darn close. And we need someone to believe in it more and really push it out there. I knew working in dental, when I was doing some of the marketing stuff, it was like, I knew our product was the best. We were a little behind the curve, but I still talked about that product. I didn't care if it was on the job, off the job, when I was in a dental office, when I was off work on the weekend, getting my own dental work done. I talked about our product Like it was premium, top of the line. There is nothing better than that. And that's what we have to do. We have to position ourselves and position the companies we want to work for too. That's a thing too. You really want to work for a company, boost them up, build them up, show that you're the expert in what you do, but boost them up too. Showcase what their weaknesses are, yes, but be like, hey, you know what? You can be here because I believe you can be here, but you just need a couple of these steps in between, and I can be those couple of steps in between. And here's a bonus too, is teaching. I will teach people in your organization to continue boosting you up.
You know, it's the common theme I'm seeing in what you're saying is interesting, because I think it comes down to the fact of the matter is, to stand out, you have to be, a lot of times you have to be bold. And being bold can be terrifying. It really can. And I appreciate that and I respect it. And I'm going to say that you have to get to be among the more successful job seekers. You have to get over that fear, but it's not as easy as me just, I want to validate. It's not as easy as me just snapping my finger saying, get over it. And all of a sudden you're going to say, wow, I'm no longer scared. Shit, I can't believe it. This is great. But taking some chances. If you're considering sending out a cold email, networking email to somebody, do something to stand out and be different. If you want to send an email, if you want to make a phone call, if you want to try a bold line in a job interview or whatever the case is, one of the most important things to remember, I always say, is that you're already not working there. They can't make it any worse than it already is. So it's sticking out, and do you run the risk perhaps of giving somebody the wrong impression? Maybe, but that's better than no impression at all, which is where you're probably going to wind up if you just decide to be as vanilla as possible and not take any chances with your rhetoric, with your writing, with how you position your value, things like that. So that's,
I mean, I'll give you a personal example. I was on the quieter side most of my elementary career, or elementary, like school age. High school, okay, you get a little whatever. Going into college now, I have an engineering background. So engineers are just kind of, I love you all. I love you. I support you all. And I work with a lot of you. But they're pretty bland, pretty vanilla. I know my stuff. I've got a lot. I'm very intelligent, that type thing. But to be different, when I went to college, I went a week early, 2 weeks early, 2 weeks early, to be able to do the engineering academy, things like that, and to get to know the engineers, and we build things together and whatnot. When everyone else got there, I was like, I know one person on this entire campus, and they're not in engineering. I kind of need to make some friends the first time completely on my own. And so I went door to door knocking. Hi, I'm Vanessa, blah, blah, blah. Like start explaining who I am and just having a smile on my face. Hey, I live over in 211 here. Can, you know, if you want to hang out, blah, blah, blah. Like I did that. I was on the second floor. I had gone to the first floor, the second floor. I get to the third floor. You know who was on the third floor who is not an engineer? My husband now. So I knock on the door and they're like, okay, he tells the story too. And from his perspective, he's like, I close the door and is like, that girl is high on life. And wow, like, okay, whatever. We became friends. We hung out. He got married to someone else and we went on and live our life. We reconnected. And here we are all these years later, because I did something different that was a bit out of my comfort zone, to be honest with you. I was like shaking like the first handful of them. And then I was like, you know what? What do I have to lose? The people can either love me or hate me or be whatever it is, but I'm introducing myself and that's it. And that's all you guys are doing is you're introducing yourself. And sometimes you're going to goof up. I don't know how many times, Jason, you and I, we get on calls or we get on a stage or whatever it is and you goof. I mean, we had missions at our church this past weekend. And now the missions pastor, she is up there talking all the time. She's very eloquent now. She stumbled over multiple sentences and she just stopped and she's like, okay, I made a mistake. And then she kept talking. It happens. You move on. People don't disrespect you anymore. It happens. You're gonna make blurbs. If you can laugh at yourself and give yourself grace, shake it off. You have to be like that. The world's not asking you to be perfect.
Well, I'm glad that the story is a perfect segue into. I had a client ask me the other day, tell me, I was trying to say be bold, be different, and they said, do you have any examples from your background where you've been bold and different? And I have lots, and a lot of them have been even embarrassing failures. It's the only way I learn is to pull, to pick the gravel out of my cheek and realize that I just went face first into the ground and not do that again. But I was working for a different company. It was the last company I worked for before starting the first of our businesses. And I was in a big bake-off against a bunch of different vendors. This is the biggest individual deal I ever closed in my entire career. The client had asked, we were an outsourced software development company, and said, what are your guarantees? And I said, I've got 10 pages of legalese that can talk about what our guarantees are, but I'm going to give you the only guarantee that matters. If we work together long enough, I'm going to do something staggeringly, borderline embarrassingly bad on your behalf accidentally. I'm going to screw something up.
Mm-hmm.
Any one of these vendors tells you different, I need you to fire them on the spot.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The only criteria by which I would make this decision is, how does the company respond to their own failure? How do they own it? Do they step right up and say, I made a mistake, I'm going to fix it, we own this? And that's the way human beings work. Mm-hmm. In order to do all of this, in order to accomplish all of this stuff, sales, marketing, value proposition, reaching out to strangers, networking, the whole thing, it is all predicated on you being an authentic human being. Mm-hmm. And not being afraid to admit that to others, and showing off the fact that you aren't perfect and that you do make mistakes, and even showing a prospective employer how you've learned from a previous mistake. Mm-hmm.
I tell it to our boys all the time. I mean, they'll sit there and be like, he hit me, he did this to me, he. And I tell them all the time, and they're going to, those things your mom, like, they're going to say this about me years from now. But I tell them, I said, you know what part do you own? And what can you admit to? And now, once you've admitted to that, how are you going to move forward? How are you going to say, okay, you know what? Yeah, I said something kind of snotty to him. The words were okay, but the attitude that I had behind it was really snotty. Okay, now how am I going to move forward from that? Right? Or I tell people, like, I teach them to be salespeople. I'm like, go in the neighborhood. If you want a new Lego set, guess what? You're going to go earn the money and whatnot, but you're going to have to go to whoever at karate in the neighborhood, and you're going to have to sell whatever you're offering. And they'll go nervously. And I said, you know what? The worst they can say is no. No, get out of here. Right? They were doing a serving activity just about a month ago at one of the grocery stores, and we were just literally handing them shopping lists. Hey, here, buy this, and it'll get donated to the food pantry. Okay. They were like scared to death to do it. I said, you know what? What's the worst they're going to do? What? And the worst thing that actually did happen is one of the older guys was like, I don't need this. And literally just threw the sheet on the ground. That was the worst that happened. The best things that happened was people took the list. Oh my goodness, thank you so much. And went and bought stuff and brought it back. And we told them, because, right, my husband and I are in sales. It's like, you're going to get a bunch of no's. You're going to get a bunch, I'm not interested. I'm not whatever. Okay, fine. Great, guys. Part of it is a numbers game. And I think that's what we're trying to say here too, is part of it is a numbers game. You got to take that risk. You're not going to get a first yes right away. And I tell this to people too, and you guys are all going to hate me for it, but it's true. You're buying a house. The first one that comes up in your price range and all the perfect things, should you buy it? No. The first car that you drive because you need a new car, should you buy it? No, you shouldn't. Start comparing it to other things. Start putting it out there, because guess what? I can guarantee that the first one isn't always going to be the best. It's going to be the second or the third or the fourth or the fifth or the sixth. First of all, because you practice, because you know what, you buy the first one, it might seem all good, but there's really a lot of other things underneath that are not good.
Mm-hmm.
And you just bought into something that you didn't do your research on, right?
Well, I don't know if I were to leave, I don't know how much time we have here. I know we're coming up
hitting an hour here, so I think we're good.
Against the hour. But if I was to leave anybody with one thought, it's to don't spend too much time in your search getting ready to get ready. Identify an organization, identify an individual in that organization via LinkedIn or whatever research methods you want to go after, and begin introducing yourself, begin reaching out, begin conveying your value and talking a little bit about their problems. Don't spend too much time. I see this a lot, trying to create, I've got to create my lists, and then I've got to create my pitch, and then I've got to do this. And then, well, the next thing you know, it's 3 months down the road and we haven't called anybody yet. So identifying, first of all, going about your job search this way, instead of looking up job ads, looking up the organizations where you feel like your fit would be the best and your value would be the highest, is a way to really take control of that search. When you come across that one company that you just are salivating over, you're saying, I could easily see myself doing X, Y, and Z at that company, who's probably experiencing these 3 kinds of problems. Get that information, get those thoughts out of your head and into the head of somebody else on the other side of the fence that's working at that company, that might be struggling with some of the problems that you have experience solving. And then follow up. If anybody watching has ever been sold to, it probably wasn't on the first call. It probably took 5 or 10 calls and emails and check-ins and so on and so forth. So it's going to take some persistence. The opportunities are definitely out there. It just is going to be a little bit less traditional than what job searching has been in the past, which has just been want ads, job ads, resumes, interviews, so on and so forth. It just isn't how the market's operating right now.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of close out on that is slow down. Yes, don't just apply, but slow down enough to understand your value, understand the solution that you are to organizations, and then understand what the ROI is going to be because you're the solution to the problem, and then just start going. Like I tell clients, I'm like, slow down, do that stuff. First of all, don't apply the first week that you've laid off, anything like that. Like just take your emotional, mental, grieve it. But then after that, don't apply again. Figure out what you need to be able to present yourself. And then you start seeing you having more confidence in you and what you can do. And then that's where you're going to start to see more interviews. You're going to start to get further along in the interviews, and you're going to land something. And then you're going to have a handful of companies that are going to want you like desperately. And then the best thing there, I've got this company and this company and this company. Who do I want to work for? It's not now this is the only company that is wanting me right now, so I'm just going to apply, or I'm just going to take it. They offered me something, I'm just going to take it. You want to position yourself like that expert who many companies need and want, and you get to choose. So I think that was great for today, guys.
It's a tremendous note to close on.
It is good to close here. And we are going to, Jason and I are going to talk, and we will probably at least have one more of these lives very soon here where we're discussing another set of details. But here's the thing, if you guys have been watching and you're like, I want to know more about X, or hey, you guys didn't talk about Y, send either one of us a message, and we would love to be able to address it live, because if you're having the question, other people are going to have that same question or something similar too. And we'd love to be able to walk through that with you. But until next time, go out there, have a great day, and take some of the things that we talked about and actually apply them, guys. Okay? Anything else, Jason?
I have nothing else to add right this very minute, but thank you so much for having me. It's been a great conversation, Vanessa.
Of course. All right, we'll see you guys soon.
All right.
And oh,